All right, let's get into what I believe are the top 10 most underrated movies of the year. What I did is I went to go see other people's ratings. I went to Rotten Tomatoes, got the audience score, because that's the one I believe more. I put that against what I rated the movie. I also looked at the box office numbers compared to the budget. So I'm going to factor that in too, because some of these movies, I will say, have a higher rating that you would assume for a... If you were calling something underrated and it has like a pretty decent score, but then if you factor in how much money it made versus how much money it spent to make that movie, I consider that as well, because sometimes you see a list and you're like, oh, this is a box office bomb, even though it could be a good movie. So let's get into the list. At number 10, I have Ricky Stenicki from Amazon, which has
funny
audience score of 69%, cost $50 million to make, doesn't have a box office because, well, it went to Amazon. But I feel like when people take movies so seriously, sometimes you just want a dumb movie.
If John Cena's in it, he was in Ricky Stenicki, correct?
Yeah,
I'm not expecting it to be comedy club act. Like, I just want like dumb humor, and that delivered.
The movie was about, they were all friends as a kid. They were all childhood friends, and they came up with some random name to blame something on that they did as kids. And then they kept using that person to go do other things.
To get out of things. Like, they would tell their wives, like, Ricky needs us.
Like, oh, we got to go to the Vegas to go hang out with Ricky.
Ricky's girlfriend dumped him. He really needs a cheer-up club.
So anytime they needed a bailout, he was their alibi, like, shell person, like a shell company, until time came that everybody needed to meet Ricky, and then it gets into this whole thing. So it's a dumb plot, but I just feel like every movie...
I giggled.
Yeah, certain movies I go into and I want a little bit more. And I leave thinking, man, that was dumb. That was bad writing. But sometimes you just want something dumb. And I think in an era which I tried to include, I think I did include no sequels, no franchises on this entire list. When we are complaining about there aren't great comedies anymore, and then we don't...
because we don't go see the ones that they put out, so then we just get 17 sequels.
You don't see the ones in theaters, so you're going to get less of them there. And then the ones on streaming are going to be a little bit lesser of quality because you can't spend that same amount because people aren't going to see them in theaters. So I enjoy movies like this. I think one every now and then is worthy, especially if you're somebody who just really wants a comedy and are itching for one. If you aren't giving movies like this a chance, then, well, maybe you don't deserve a comedy.
Harsh, but true.
At number 9, I have Self-Reliance, which I gave a 4 out of 5. You can watch it on Hulu. This was the Jake Johnson movie,
yes,
which I feel I watched it and I loved it, and I couldn't imagine anybody else not enjoying it as much as I did.
So then imagine your surprise when people didn't.
Everybody hated this movie, and I don't understand what the hate was.
To my surprise, no one else did.
I was like, guys, this is a good one, isn't it? I posted that review. Everybody hated this movie, and I feel...
personally attacked.
It did get a little ridiculous here and there, but I just love the journey of this movie, and I thought it was a really good movie.
I was meh on it. It was good.
Just not
the
your
plot
style.
Was weird. Yeah.
I like the plot being weird, and I like Anna Kendrick in it. I thought her and Jake Johnson were really good together. I just thought the entire premise behind it was fun, and that's all I wanted out of it. And at the end of the movie, I was satisfied, but I found that a lot of other people were not satisfied by the ending of this movie. It did cost $70 million to make, which is a lot.
Could imagine what I could do with $70 million.
That's a lot of money.
When I think about these like budgets for movies, I'm just like, I could do so much with that.
I have been thinking about that a lot because I've been watching a lot of just histories of movies right now.
You're in a big...
Yeah.
What is that? Vice series?
The Vice series, yeah, the Unearthed series. And... before, sometimes I think, like, how could they spend $250 million on a movie and then
it flop?
Or you just start wondering, like, what even goes into that? And the more I watch some of these behind the scenes, you kind of start to see it. You think of it as a big production. Even, like, T.I. is on there talking about how great craft services that Marvel has. And you think, yeah, food gets expensive.
T.I.?
Yeah, T.I. was in Ant-Man.
Oh.
So he did an interview for it, and he was talking about, the best craft services out of any movie he's ever worked on. So you think about how much money they're just spending on food a day.
I think love that T.I. was the interview they could get for that.
They had a lot of people on there, but that was just the one that stuck out because
a random reference.
He talked about the things that I care about, like how much money are they spending on food and how good of food is a $250 million Marvel movie compared to like a low budget movie where you probably have to bring your own lunch.
Now I'm thinking, is T.I. the Whatever You Like song?
Yeah,
You can have whatever you like.
He was good at that, man. And a lot of that stuff, I think for his character in particular, it wasn't written until he got on set. They were just kind of like, all right, here we go. We're going to give you some lines. So he didn't even have a whole lot of time to like.
T.I. doesn't care what he's doing. He's like, they got craft services.
They got great food. I'm showing up for that. But you can kind of start to see how movie budgets balloon up when you're having to feed people, you're having to transport people,
makeup, hair.
And then in those movies, you're having to pay people to do all the special effects. And that's why that gets expensive. I always thought, like, how could special effects cost you money?
You're paying for someone's time.
Exactly. So
it's really all we're ever being paid for in this world is our time.
But yeah, that movie didn't have a box office because it went to Hulu. I find that's a really expensive Hulu movie. $70 million.
Hulu spends a lot of money for movies that I'm just like, no one's going to see this.
But that was one I was surprised by. I still stand by enjoying this movie. I put that one at number 9. And number 8, I have Fly Me to the Moon, which I think for the most part, it had a pretty good reaction. It has a 90% popcorn meter.
Came out the week before Twisters, though.
But I think it was bad timing. And if you look at the box office numbers, it's pretty bad. It's a $100 million movie. Made $42 million at the box office, so lost a good amount of money. I think this was one that audiences enjoyed more than critics. We love this movie.
I think it should have just gone to Apple.
That was the intention of this movie. You can still watch it on Apple, and I think putting it out in theaters, spending that money on advertising probably ballooned up at least the advertising budget. Oh, but I think it's pretty solid. It had good comedy. I thought Scarlett Johansson and Channing Tatum's chemistry was really good.
They did have great chemistry.
And it also contributed to a lot of people having conspiracy theories about the moon landing.
In space. You know, I'm very big into space now. I need to read a book about the moon landing.
What do you think about the moon landing? Did we actually go? After watching this movie, what do you think?
Yes. The movie did make me have some questions.
Yeah, you just wonder where this theory in particular from this movie comes from. Because the entire thing is about Scarlett Johansson having to go in and essentially do PR for NASA and make them cool. And then she does such a good job that they're like, whoa, we actually have a lot of attention here. We have to come up with a backup plan in case this doesn't work out.
I don't know. I think if I just start believing conspiracy theories about that.
And you're going to believe it about everything?
I'm never going to believe anything again.
I am getting to that point with all the AI online where I'm like, did they even say that? Is that them? And I'm overanalyzing things just because I'm like, everything's a scam.
I'll talk more about my interest in space in my book episode of the year. But yeah, I need to read a moon landing book because I'm very big into like NASA right now. It's my hyper obsession of the week.
If you were given the opportunity to go to space, would you go? We talking about this the other day. Like, what do you even do in space? Like, what are they doing up there?
No, I think I'd get too motion sick. I don't think I would do well. And you get like space, like sickness syndrome.
That sounds kind of cool, though.
No.
I want to hurl in a spacesuit.
It floats away from you. That's disgusting.
That's cool.
That's disgusting.
You can just see it like floating
Stop.
around.
Stop.
I would like to go like straight up, see the Earth from up there, and then come back down.
That's the part that sounded cool. Reading some of these books, but like, I don't know, it just feels stressful. But I have ended up on several wormholes lately, like Wikipedia, like what is the International Space Station? What are they doing up there? What are we taking up there? When they talk about all these satellites, what are we doing? Are we just like leaving them up there? There's those people that are like stranded in space right now currently. I have more questions than I have answers to about space. So until I have concrete evidence that the moon landing did not occur, I'm going to believe it.
Well, if you haven't seen this movie, go watch it and come up with your own theory about it. At number 7, I have The Fall Guy, which you can watch now on Peacock.
Number 1, underrated for me.
A 4 out of 5. It was so
funny.
It was funny. It had great action. It was a little meta because it's about Ryan Gosling, who's a stuntman, and he's doing stuntman things inside of a stuntman movie. So it goes that other level. The director was a former stuntman. He was a stuntman for Brad Pitt. The movie cost $130 million to make. Made $181 at the box office, but really to be profitable, you have to make back twice your budget.
Good grief.
So this is definitely going to be on the list of the biggest bombs of the year. It had a really bad opening weekend
I don't know how.
where I was shocked about how little, I guess it was the timing of this movie too, of
Start of summer.
how little money it didn't make. And you have two huge stars, Ryan Gosling and Emily Blunt.
We laughed so hard at this movie. I left and I was like, that was great.
Because I feel for us, for a movie like this, it had something for the both of us. It had like the rom-com aspect, but it also had that action aspect. And then it had like an entirely different level of film that was something that felt truly unique because it's based on a TV show. I'm really familiar with this TV show. It's from way back in the day. So to me, even though technically it's a reboot or a reimagination of a TV show, it didn't really feel like they were rehashing something old to make money off of it because I wasn't familiar with the source material.
I didn't know it was based on a TV show.
Oh,
It's news to me.
I'm just learning that right now.
I was today years old when I learned that.
See, yeah, most people didn't know. But of all the movies that lost a lot of money this year, this one just makes me a little bit sad because I think it should have done better. It has a pretty decent audience score at 85%, so I think the people that did go see it did enjoy it. But oftentimes it's about looking back in history and seeing the box office numbers versus the budget, that this is just going to go down as being a flop. And that sucks, especially for Ryan Gosling, where he is in his point of his career, where I feel like he's trying to do movies that aren't the same thing over and over again. And then you do something like this that was probably fun for him. And now it's like, man, do I just have to go back and doing what people enjoy instead of doing what I want to do? But I felt bad for that movie. I put that one at number 7. At number 6, you can watch it on Amazon now. I have Drive Away Dolls.
So funny. Do not watch with children around.
Yeah, I think that's probably ultimately what led to not more people seeing and enjoying this movie. It is a pretty crude movie just from the opening scene. And it's essentially like, I would say, kind of in this generation, Thelma and Louise. It's a road trip movie. You have some bad guys going after these girls. They're doing very crude things all throughout. A lot of slapstick comedy, just crude comedy from beginning to end. A lot of curse words, a lot of nudity. But something that it just felt fresh to me.
It was Margaret Qualley was so good in it, and Beanie Feldstein.
And I think this started Margaret Qualley's like run of movies that she doesn't want her parents to go see.
She was like, movies that my family can't see this year: Drive Away Dolls, Kinds of Kindness, and The Substance.
And yeah, this started it. But I feel like next year is going to be even stronger for her because I feel with her 3 movies I feel like all 3 movies of hers were solid this year. When we do the best of 2024 episode, I think The Substance is going to end up on this list, and I wanted to include Drive Away Dolls here. It has an audience score of 36%. That's so low.
That is really low.
I think,
Sometimes the low audience scores are the best movies.
Yeah, I think out of every movie I put on this list, it has the lowest score, had a budget of $13 million, which isn't crazy, but only made $7.9 million at the box office, lost about $5 million. But this is a movie that just didn't have any advertising.
No.
You didn't see anything about it. I don't even remember how we learned about it.
There were a couple trailers.
I think that was it. I think we just like Margaret Qualley, so we were like, hey, let's go watch the new Margaret Qualley movie.
It does sound about right.
And no one else went to go see it, but that's why I put that one at number 6. At number 5, I have The Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare.
Again, really enjoyed it.
This was a movie that I feel we went to go see because we were trying to utilize and maximize how much we use our Regal Unlimited.
Or we had nothing else to do that weekend.
Or
sometimes we get a little too stir crazy, and really our hobbies are either spending money or going to the movies, and we have to alternate those hobbies because, spending money gets too expensive. So I think that was a weekend where we were like, we just need to get out of the house.
Especially during the warmer months in the summer where we're like, let's just go hang out in somebody's cold AC.
No, truly, we turn the air up in the house so we're not running it here, and then we go sit in the freezing cold Regal Theater.
So I think this was one, I kind of remember that day. We're like, let's go watch it. Let's see what's happening. And maybe it's because we had such low expectations. I knew you would enjoy the World War II elements a little bit.
Me? Never.
But it's not really like your typical World War II movie. I really like the style of action and just the overall cinematography in this movie. I love the scenes out on the water where it just looks so blue and rich. Like, that is my favorite color palette. Like that water that even though I wouldn't want to jump in the ocean, it makes me want to jump in the ocean. I thought the action was really good, and I really like Henry Cavill. And I feel like he has been done dirty by DC by them saying, hey, you're going to come back as Superman. Actually, we're moving on and we're going to do a different Superman movie.
I think that's a great point.
He left The Witcher for that. He had the cameo in the movie. He was all set up to come back as Superman, and now they're probably not going to bring him back.
It does not hurt that he is so attractive. I did not mind looking at him on the screen for 2 hours.
Except when he was in Argyle. We were like, we're good on Henry Cavill.
That whole movie, that is not an underrated film.
Not underrated. That's going to make the worst
that was
of the year.
overrated.
Yeah, some people really enjoyed that movie, but
we were not among them.
But this movie had a budget of $60 million and only made $29 million at the box office.
It's a 50% loss.
So it lost a lot of money, but I think it's a solid movie. I give it a 4 out of 5. It's not on a streaming service. You have to have Stars to watch it. So I don't think we have Stars. You'd probably just have to rent it.
We got to stop having so many services, everyone. PSA.
I think we have them all now. Except
it's getting too. It's more expensive than cable TV would have been.
Yeah, we're back at the same thing now.
And they're not even. At first, I was like, "Oh, convenience. They're all in the same place," but they're not.
Mm-mm.
They're on Prime. They're on Hulu. It's on Netflix. It's on Max. It's too many places.
The only one we don't have right now is Paramount Plus.
Yeah, because we got Peacock too.
Yeah, that Black Friday sale got us.
And I will watch Twisters enough to get our money's worth.
And I was like, oh, I love to bundle them up when you can save money. But yeah, that one comes in at number 5. At number 4, you can watch it on Hulu. I gave it a 4.5 out of 5. It is Babes.
I saw someone on TikTok. This is the movie that I brought up months ago where I saw someone on TikTok say they walked out of a movie and it was the worst movie of the year. And I was like, I can't remember what the movie was that they hated. It was Babes.
They walked out of Babes?
They hated Babes.
What?
I'm horrified for that person because this was like Bridesmaids to me. It was that level of funny.
It was the movie about a girl who gets pregnant on a one-night stand, decides to keep the baby, and basically it's from that moment all the way up to when she has the baby. Kind of like a Knocked Up, kind of like a Bridesmaids, like you said, but really just a story about two friends and how when you get older, your friendships change. Because when you're young, you spend all your time together. But when you get older, one of you has kids, has a husband, has a family. Having to maintain a really close relationship with a friend is hard to do.
It is really hard. And as someone who's in the phase of married but doesn't have kids yet, I have friends that are married and have kids. And then I have friends that aren't married. So it's like we're all in different phases. And it's not even that like being together is weird. It's just finding the time to hang out when you all live in different places.
Yeah, that's probably the hardest thing for you is that everybody has dispersed all over the country.
It is very hard. Does give me excuses to go visit fun places.
And me, I left from where all my friends are. Like it's mostly family. I have friends in Texas that if I was still living there, I would hang out with. But yours are just all over the place.
They are.
But I feel at the core of what Babes was about, yeah, it is about her getting pregnant, but it's, I would say, mostly about their relationship.
It's about female friendship.
And that bond. But the movie has a 79% audience score, which is decent. It's passing, but had a budget of $3.7 million and only made $3.8 billion. So about broke even, but I don't feel like there was too much advertising on this movie.
No, this movie was so funny. They failed it in not advertising it.
Hopefully more people are watching it now that it's on Hulu. And it was cool. We went to go see it at the Belcourt. We got to see like that
Yeah, they had a live view into like a screening because we saw it on Mother's Day. And it was a screening with Julia Louis-Dreyfus as the moderator.
I just thought this movie had some of the best writing in anything this year. It was very witty, funny, and clever. I still stand by my 4.5 out of 5. That's why I put it at number 4.
I take it back. This is my number 1 underrated. I didn't know this was on the list. Over The Fall Guy. Babes was phenomenal.
Babes, you're number 1. All right. I have at number 3, Love Lies Bleeding, which I gave a 4 out of 5. You can watch it now on Max.
Did I see that?
You did not watch this one with me.
Okay.
It's an A24 movie with Kristen Stewart. She has a job at a gym. She meets a bodybuilder. They have this really chaotic relationship. Kristen Stewart's family is like a crime family. So I feel that this movie did pretty well as far as the audience score has an 82%, but the movie cost $10 million to make. Only made about $12 million at the box office, so really didn't clear a whole lot. But this is one of the most imaginative movies of the year, where I think the problem some people might have with it is it goes from being so based in reality to having a lot of elements of fantasy. And I love that aspect of it because at the core of it, it seems just like a crime drama. I was so invested in their relationship and them just wanting to make it out of their bad situation. And then it kind of changes in the third act where it breaks the rules of reality and turns into this really fantastical story. And it almost felt like this old little fairy tale in the form of an A24 movie. And I thought this movie was going to be huge. Given that it has Kristen Stewart in it, I feel like she's in that era of her career where she is taking more bold risks in her roles. And I thought this was a great example of that. I just can't believe this movie didn't make more money. So I decided to put that one at number 3. At number 2, another one you didn't watch with me. It's What's Inside on Netflix. I gave it a 4 out of 5.
Is it scary?
It's kind of scary. It's more on the
That's
level
why I
of a Black Mirror episode where they're at this party. It's before this couple is getting married, and this guy has this device that everybody puts on these little things on their head, and they're able to switch bodies with somebody else in the room. And then the game is that you have to decide who is in your body. So just the premise alone is fantastic. And this is one that it's on Netflix, but it's not a Netflix original. It is a movie that Netflix acquired the rights to. So there's no real budget that was put out about it, no real box office performance, but they did buy it for $17 million. So I didn't really see a whole lot of people talking about this movie whenever it was put out on Netflix. And that's why I feel that sometimes it's hard to gauge the reaction a Netflix movie has because sometimes they come out and just kind of fall into the abyss. So,
Because there's always stuff coming out.
yeah, like they had that whole initiative a couple, maybe even back in the pandemic or 2021 where they were putting out a new movie every single week. And they still kind of do that. But it almost just feels like content at this point where it's somebody just putting up a YouTube video. Shout out to everybody on YouTube right now. But it's like, dang, like they acquired the rights to this movie. A 69% audience score is pretty good. But the movie comes out and then that week or two after it's added on there, like how do you even search out a movie on Netflix if it's not up there in like the top 10? Like how are they pushing it to people after a while? So I think it was just the fact that I really enjoyed the level of fantasy, but I just feel that I thought that movie would have had a little bit more of an impact. And I don't know how you really make money from Netflix because, yeah, they buy the rights to movies, but I don't feel like that was one that, like, hey, look at all these people in this movie. It's going to get people over there to subscribe. So that is why I put that one at number 2. At number 1, my most underrated movie of 2024. I have My Old Ass.
So good.
Which I gave a 4 out of 5. It has a pretty decent audience score, like a great 89%. But I think this one comes down to the box office had a budget of $3 million, which is wild that they made this movie for $3 million. But it only made $5 million. I just think that it is hard to make a fresh coming of age movie at this point. And I love the formula. I could watch the same coming of age formula in any amount of movies and I would still enjoy it. There's just something special about it when done right. And this one, the twist was that she takes some mushrooms. She sees her older self, which is Aubrey Plaza. She tells her all this stuff about her future and kind of gives her advice on like what to avoid. And then puts her phone number in her phone and she's able to communicate with her. My only thing was I wanted more Aubrey Plaza.
It was cool to see Aubrey Plaza on a more like, I mean, she was still her like dry comedic self, but a little bit more of an emotional role.
There was a scene in this movie where I damn near cried.
Yeah, I think you did.
Like, I think there was a span of movies there. I think this one and The Wild Robot we watched back to back, I believe. And both times of the movies, like I almost cried.
I look over and you're just like,
and I did not expect to go there because there's just a moment where it's like, oh man, all this stuff that had been building up and building up.
yeah.
There's a lot of fights between her younger self and her older self, which I would question things that I would be telling my younger self. And there's a moment that just hits you right in the gut. And then it just like, oh man, I just kind of sat with it.
What's the number one thing that you would tell your younger self sitting here now as a 33 3-year-old. I always have to remember how old you are. It's very difficult for me.
I don't know how cliche this is, but like stop caring what people think. I think that kept me from doing a lot of things that I enjoyed younger because I was worried about how they would be perceived by other people. And at that time, I didn't realize that those other people would not matter when I was older. Like, look at this room now. Like, all these things that I embrace now were things that I hid back then. And I think all the things about me now that I enjoy actually about myself, I was ashamed of probably 15 years ago. And it's hard to say, to imagine me like being cool, but I had a feeling of like, I need to be cool because I was so uncool that I didn't want to come across of like putting anything against me. Because there was already a lot of things held against me. I felt like I was overweight, I had bad skin, my teeth were messed up. There were just things I felt that kept me from being cool that I was like, I just can't show any other weakness. I think that's what it would be for me. I would just not care about what anybody else thought and just like the things I like. What would you tell yourself?
Mine's also cliche, and mine would be to like stop worrying about the boys that didn't like me. Like I just was like, no one's ever gonna like me. I'm gonna be single forever.
I felt that too.
And I was so young, but I think when you're in high school and it's like you have those couples and like I never had a boyfriend. You were my first boyfriend.
Same. You were my first girlfriend.
Dates. Like I liked people. I talked to people, but like no one ever really fully liked me. And I just used to think like I'm ugly. No one's gonna like me. And honestly, in retrospect, I think I was just like too smart. I think I intimidated people. Like not to toot my own horn, but I think I just was like unapproachable because I was really smart.
I've oddly been thinking about this lately. I always felt that it was people not giving me a chance. And when I look back on myself there, I think I just didn't respect myself enough. Like I didn't put enough effort into myself to attract anybody. I thought it was all about looks, but I think it was how I treated myself and probably the energy I put out that was really what it was. And I just thought it was, like I said, just people not giving me a chance. But I thought about like, would I even want to be with me then? So maybe that's the advice I would give to myself. Like, hey, work on yourself a little more, dummy.
Yeah, I think I would tell myself to stop stressing because I met you when I was 24. That is still so young. When in retrospect, I met you when I was 24. I was married at 27. Like, I don't know. I think I just was like, oh my God, I'm going to be alone forever. But like those things feel so big when you're younger.
Yeah.
They feel so monumental.
When you're younger, you want to get older. When you're older, you want to be younger. I think if I was more specific about my advice, I think it would be that you're on your own timeline.
Yeah.
Like nobody else is really looking at your timeline, even though to you it feels like, I'm so behind. How am I not at this point in my life yet? When really nobody else cares about what's going on with you. And in the end, it doesn't really matter like what age you are when you hit these supposed milestones that you're supposed to hit.
I think I would warn myself not to like several of the guys that I liked. I think I would be like, don't waste your time. No. Don't. Just delete his number.
Even more specific advice, I would have told myself to get into coding more, to like pay attention to technology more.
I would have told myself to purchase real estate at the age of like 5.
I would have invested in like TikTok or something.
I would have invested in Bitcoin.
Exactly. I'd have bought it when it was so cheap. We'd be millionaires now. Millionaires, I tell you.
I would have bought stock in Apple.
Would it have been as value? I guess back then, I feel like the time to buy would have been like the 80s whenever they were first launching. It was like dirt cheap. I don't know if they were public by that point.
It's not according to what one of the characters in a Nicholas Sparks book did.
Oh, you bought an Apple?
He bought Apple stock, and then it's just so cliche. And like, if you don't want to hear about what happens in the Nicholas Sparks book, Counting Miracles, turn it off. Cliche title. But he was so rich because he invested in Apple, then was deployed, forgot he had stock in Apple, just never touched it, and it like exploded overnight. And he was like, shoot, the girl was like, how rich are you? And he's like, enough to like never have to work again. So I would have followed that formula.
Okay, I'll do that. Let me go back and tell myself that. Let me invest 7 shillings in Apple. But all right, that is the list. Yours were in there, right? My old ass.
Babes, the fall guy. Yep.
Cool. So nothing else we need to add?
No.
All right, we'll come back and I'll give my spoiler-free review of Y2K.
Can we not do video for my book?
Oh, yeah.